and we found that only 8% of you were opposed to the King meeting the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Yes, MPs raised concerns that the King was becoming politically involved, with the Northern Ireland deal also being named the Windsor Framework. Well, let's speak now to our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who joins us in the studio now. Cameron, it was a little bit controversial this week, wasn't it? I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg, now GBNews presenter, said that he doesn't think the sovereign should be involved in anything political unless it is literally signed, sealed and delivered. But that's not what we saw on Monday.
Exactly. Many MPs have been making that argument. There's also a lot of media noise. But according to our People's poll, it looks like the public don't actually care. As you said, only 8% of people oppose it. It was very tricky, I think, for King Charles and Buckingham Palace at the start of the week, trying not to get involved with any political controversy. And the biggest question for me is that Downing Street sources were implying that it was Buckingham Palace and the King's decision to meet Ursula von der Leyen, whereas a spokesperson for Buckingham Palace told me that they were only acting on government advice. So it's like, well, who are we meant to believe here? Clearly, the King is a constitutional monarch, so he cannot get involved. He can't get involved with any political controversy or have a political opinion. But it was kind of the power of soft diplomacy in action. And from my understanding, a broad range of topics were discussed, notably climate change and the war in Ukraine. So there wasn't any specific mention of the Northern Ireland Brexit agreement. However, clearly the timing is very significant here, because it was just hours after Ursula von der Leyen had met the Prime Minister in Windsor to make the Windsor Agreement, as the government has dubbed it, before she then went to see the King.
I mean, is there an argument to say, well, look, she is the President of the European Commission, she was in the country anyway, why not meet our new King?
Exactly. It's not uncommon, as we know, for the King, as the head of state of the United Kingdom, to meet world leaders when they are in the United Kingdom. And I say world leader because that's how Buckingham Palace has described Ursula von der Leyen. That's not me saying that she's a world leader. But the point being, it is just protocol. That's what the King does as a constitutional monarch. The power of soft diplomacy, as I said, creating and forming and bonding friendships with other countries throughout the world. And it's an asset, many people would argue, for the governments to have this soft power, this monarch who rises above politics.
Let's have a look at another story now. Harry and Meghan, again in the headlines. The Mirror saying that King Charles decided to evict them from Frogmore Cottage because they had crossed a line when it comes to the Queen Consort.
Yeah, interesting this. I did speculate yesterday that this perhaps was the reason, because the King reportedly signed off on this decision by the Crown Estate, who owns Frogmore Cottage, Harry and Meghan's UK house, to essentially ask them to leave. We reckon around the time of the coronation, either just before or just after. But the King signed off on the decision the day after Prince Harry's controversial memoir was released, which clearly went into some detail of allegations against the Queen Consort, alleging that she had planted stories. Buckingham Palace has not commented on that, and I doubt they will comment on that, so clearly we don't have the other side of the argument. But it appears that that was enough to cross Charles's red line. We had always been led to believe that Camilla would be Charles's red line if Harry criticised her. Prince Harry in the memoir also branded her dangerous, and saying that he and William actually did not want Charles to marry Camilla, which clearly happened in 2005. So yes, it appears that perhaps was a contributing factor, according to the Daily Mirror.
Do we make too much of a fuss out of this, in the sense that Frogmore, I know they ended up paying £2.4 million for the refurbishment, which I guess is a question, do they get that money back or what? But then it's not as if they're living there.
No, exactly. They've only been there a handful of times since they have left as working members of the royal family back in 2020. Clearly, we've had the pandemic, so I suspect they would have been back a lot more than they did because of that. However, it's a 5-bedroom property. We say a cottage, but it's 5-bedroom, which I think is more bedrooms than most people's houses in the United Kingdom. And I think practically for the King and the Crown Estates, they were thinking it just doesn't make sense to have this 5-bed property empty for a vast majority of the year on the off chance that Harry and Meghan decide to come back to the United Kingdom for a specific event. We know that, well, we understand that the King is wanting to cost cut and make efficiencies within the Crown Estate and the properties within that Windsor estate, which is guarded by armed guards. There's talk of perhaps Prince Andrew moving into Frogmore Cottage. However, reportedly he's very reluctant to do that, which would free up Royal Lodge, which is this massive 30-bedroom mansion. There was some speculation in the Mail yesterday that the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children could perhaps move into Royal Lodge. However, that's not been confirmed by Kensington Palace. So it's a game of monopoly, royal monopoly.
Isn't it just?
Yeah. Feels that way.
Interesting. Quick look at the friendliest street in Britain that we're going to know about by the time of the coronation.
Yes, indeed. I mean, there's lots of events, as we know, going on around the coronation. We have the main ceremony, of course, in Westminster Abbey, but we've got the big lunch as well happening that weekend. And
You like that? Food.
Yeah, well,
Food.
I'm up for it, yeah.
Yes, lots of drink, lots of food, lots of Union flags waving. And the organisers are trying to find Britain's friendliest street or friendliest community. So whether that is a block of flats, whether that is a street in a cul-de-sac or something, they want to find the most friendly street who supports their neighbours and supports their community. And as a reward, the Eden Project will be making them a community garden.